Today's guest knows the importance of experience. He's inspired a loyal following with the world's first premium indoor cycling franchise operating in over 400 territories. Since being bought by Exponential, the largest boutique franchise in the world, the brand has seen mounting success, selling 365 studios since its inception 2.5 years ago. For a lesson in how to rock your ride, please join me in welcoming the president of CycleBar, Ryan Junk, to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks.
And I think this is true, but I've heard you're a bit of a kind of like Bob Marley reggae fan. Is that right? I heard you to
I have no idea how you got that, but I do. I am a huge Bob Marley fan.
So tell us the story, because you're a bit of a singer or something. Is that right?
I can't believe that's the first question you're asking me today. I'm not a singer, no, but I do love to sing Bob Marley. So
really?
Yes, yeah. I grew up with that music and just love everything about his style and all reggae music. But yeah, that's Bob's the best.
Yeah. So I unfortunately I don't have the video of this, but
thank God.
I've heard we might be able to dig that out. Very good. So how did you get into fitness then?
I loved fitness since I was a kid. Played all the sports out there and been just a passion of mine. And then moved to California and was going to school and playing football and needed a job. So it made sense to join a local gym. So I remembered a girl that I was dating at the time said that I should go work there looking for a salesperson/trainer. And I had to lie and say I was looking for a career in fitness because they didn't want any part-time work. So I lied, and the lie was on me because 24 years later, I'm still in the fitness space. So yeah, it's been a long time.
And what was that? A local gym or a big brand?
It was a regional, I would say. They're based out of Michigan. They had about 4 locations in the Bay Area, Northern California, and it's called Fitness USA. They don't think they're in business in California anymore. But it was a small, I would say about 5,000 to 7,000 square foot box. Down the street was a big 24-hour Nautilus where I used to actually work out because I didn't work out at the place that I worked, and eventually went from there, got recruited to 24-hour Fitness. It was just the bigger player, the bigger business in the area, and was there for about 10 years.
Right. And how would you describe the industry at that time compared to now? What were gyms like, and what was it like competing in that space?
It was a big difference because everybody associated the gyms with Gold's Gym, and Gold's at the time was known for just bodybuilding and kind of aggressive. And I remembered, early on that we would do these tours and would have to educate people on how to eat more meals, or how to eat right, and how cardio would work, and resistance training. A lot of people were scared to do resistance training because they thought they would just get big. So the sales process was a lot different back then because you had to do a lot more education, whereas now you don't have to educate as much. No. It is a different presentation. A lot of the same fundamentals are the same though. That hasn't changed in the business.
Really, in terms of kind of bringing people through the doors and keeping them, those are things.
Yeah, back then the hardest part was getting leads and getting people in, and now same thing. Now there's a lot more tools, right, with digital and different revenues, different avenues. But it was the same thing. You had to get leads, you had to get them to book appointments, you had to get them to come in. There's a lot of people that have entered the fitness space that I think that because they didn't understand that history, they don't understand that fundamental, they kind of associate it from what other businesses do in other industries, and they don't put a lot of weight on that, and they don't realize that the consumer, regardless of your product, has to be sold on the benefits to your product, and they not sold in a bad way, but just kind of presented the features and benefits, and then ask for the sale. Because in the fitness space, regardless, and people want to lose weight or gain weight, it's easy to procrastinate.
Right.
So when you take that piece out, you've seen some of the companies out there where they've brought in either management from other businesses, and they've come in, they've tried to systematize it and take the human piece out of the sales process or remove the sales process completely. They struggle because there's a not as much education, but more of kind of highlighting the features and benefits more now, I would say, than anything.
Right, and I've seen that a lot particularly with some of the lower cost models where it is very automated and you book online and you buy it. Are you saying then that it's still important to have someone who can really explain to you why you should be getting involved in with a business or fitness facility?
I do, even in those models. I mean, you may not be paying commissions, or you may not be hiring highly skilled salespeople, but the biggest difference that you'll see there is people still need to be talked into it. And I don't mean talked into it like, trying to sell someone a car. It's $10 a month, right? But even those locations and that model, people still need to be asked for the sale. They need to say, let's join now versus coming back later on. I mean, you still see that up until the premium models as well.
Really?
I still think people want you to kind of close the gap on what their goals are and how you're going to provide it, because there's so many different options now, and everybody's got different goals. And we're seeing even in our boutique space where people will have a low price, high volume membership somewhere at $10 or $20 a month, but then they're buying 2 or 3 boutique fitness memberships with it. So it allows them to kind of supplement that.
Right. And with that changing then, so in terms of selling to people, are they coming to these different boutiques because they just want a mixed fitness experience, or they want a social experience, or they want to lose weight? What do you think are some of the drivers from when you started, or are they the same, just packaged differently?
No, it's the consumer wants something differently now. Back then it was, how many offerings can you give? Can you do cycling? Can you do yoga? Can you do Pilates? Can you do resistance training and cardio? And then how many different pieces of cardio can you offer? And it really came into how much equipment can we jam into this 40,000 square foot space. So now you have a lot more where it's a one-stop shop. The consumer shifted, especially with millennials. I mean, millennials are just phenomenal. The ability that they are to multitask. They also are all about experience. So for them, they will pay more for experience. And you see it in concerts, right? I mean, all-time high. People are paying a lot more money to go to that experience. Traveling, they're traveling more. They're not maybe spending on some of the bigger ticket items or investments, but they'll buy 2 or 3 boutique fitness memberships, but they make $70,000 to $80,000 a year. But to them, it's worth it, because when they go there, it's an escape, right? They get there and it's more of an experience versus going to a gym to work out. Like for us, we have cycling, right? And we do teach a little differently, and then you would get at a traditional big box gym or even some of the other boutiques. But when you kind of get in there, it's more of like the way you walk in, the energy you feel, the lighting, the music, the energy, the community. That's what they're paying for. And they're willing to pay more for that because of the specialization in that one piece, right? Where they may go join HIIT training somewhere else, right? They may go do the yoga somewhere else, and they'll pay for that because when they go there, they're getting what they want, which is an experience, not necessarily a workout. So even though you can see in some of the big box gyms where they're great, they have a great product and they're trying to give all those offerings, they still won't go there for that. They want to go to the boutique. They want that experience.
That's interesting. Do you think then now, do you think that's mainly a millennial thing? So, if you want to tap into those people, then they don't want the traditional big box experience? Or do you think that generally people have kind of had all those different experiences now, and not just the millennials, but everybody's now saying, well, I like fitness, but I don't think how it's done before is kind of what I wanted, and I've seen this now, and this is more what fitness is to me. What do you think about those two?
Personally, I mean, my opinion is it's not that they don't think it works anymore, or they don't like it. I think a lot of them still have those memberships. I don't think a lot of them are leaving the big box. I think that they're going to boutique for their once or twice or 3 times a week kind of workout, right? They'll come to us for their ride, but they'll still pay $10 a month to go to their local gym, right? Where they can maybe do some resistance training if they like, or they can go to the pool, or they can go in the sauna. I don't see a lot of people leaving that, and it's not a millennial thing. I mean, we have all different ages. I mean, especially with CycleBar, we attract in our industry, in our kind of our space in cycling, we attract more men. And
really?
I think some of it is our branding. I think some of it is the way that we teach. We do some performance rides. They're a lot more metrics driven and competitive driven. But you'll get that where they'll come in and then I get my cardio fix and I'll burn a ton of calories and I'll have fun. And we have people tell us that it's almost, they love it on Fridays because they'll do the ride and then they go out because it feels like that's the start of that. I mean, it's that experience. We do a wind down Wednesday where after classes, some of our local, some of our franchisees do literally wine after class, and everybody hangs out together and they socialize. So it is that experience. But I don't think it's because people don't value or they don't enjoy the big box gym anymore. I think you got personal training there, the people that give you a lot of attention, but you're paying extra for that. I could see maybe someone not maybe spending extra there and using it on the boutique space.
So, and I'm thinking about myself, like I still like the big box, not that, and I guess there's different levels in that, because you've got the low cost where I suppose it's $10, $20 a month, no one's even going to think about it. And then you've got a higher price. Why do I go to a big box kind of club? Because it's, I like the fact I can do my weights, and you've kind of got, as you say, you've got the pool and the sauna and all those kind of things. It becomes more of a go away and just sort of, work out and not think about anything. But I also like the class because sometimes I can't be bothered to motivate myself, and having someone to do that and coming out almost like taking it away from me is different as well. So do you think then that people are just more educated about fitness and are able to sort of pick and choose to say, well, I like restaurants where I want Italian and I want sort of sushi or something. Do you think that's kind of where it is?
It is. I really don't think it's education anymore. There's so many blogs, there's so many posts on social media. You can go on your scroll down your feed and you can get educated on fitness. I mean, I think there's so much content out there, and a lot of it's helpful, right? But at the end of the day, it's either if you're trying to lose weight, you got to eat less calories than you burn, right? And the trick is, how do you get them to burn it in a way that they enjoy? And to me, that's what really got me excited about CycleBar, was because it is that party on a bike. We call it Rock Your Ride because it's about the music. The music is a huge part of that. It's the experience of the instructor. It's not, hey, I'm gonna listen to my own music, or I'm gonna watch a movie, or I'm gonna watch the news and try to not focus on what I'm doing right now, which is being on the treadmill for 20 minutes. Yeah. It's the total opposite. It's I'm involved, I'm engaged with my instructor, they're engaged with me, they're pushing me, and a lot of times when you're in a class, you will push yourself a lot harder. I mean, especially when you're in these classes and you're up, you're down together, you kind of see that sequencing where they're kind of, hey, this is one group, right? And you don't feel like anybody's looking at you because you're in a dark room with a bunch of different lights going. But you'll push yourself harder versus going to the gym. And a lot of the big box gyms now lack that energy, where when you go in, they don't want to deal with everybody having different preferences of music, so they just turn it down to where you can't even hear it anymore because you have to listen to your headphones. So everybody's plugged in. Yeah. There's no community, right? You're there, and you're pushing yourself as much. So if you're someone that's highly motivated and you love doing weights and you love doing cardio, then you're going to be fine wherever you go. But most people don't. Right. Most people want you to take control, and they want it to be an experience. So our goal is that when you're in a class, to get you to burn as many calories as you can. So whether you're there once a week, 3 times a week, or 4 times a week, regardless, we want to maximize that, but you shouldn't be feeling like it. And I think that's the draw. The draw is they don't feel like they're losing weight. They don't feel like they're in there to work on those goals, which a lot of people, feel depressed. Like if I have a goal to lose 20 pounds and that's what I'm really focusing on, a lot of people don't have that discipline to burn enough calories and then follow the meal program. But if we get them to look forward to going to a class because it is the music and the energy and the vibe, and it's safe, because the last thing you want is people getting hurt, right? So it's an environment where it's inclusive and they're burning a lot of calories but not realizing it's a workout, it's fun. Yeah. To me, that's where the lure is. That's where people are like, okay, I get a better workout in this boutique fitness. And it is, there's no check-in. The big box, you go in, you have your card, you check in, hopefully it's a great greeting, right? And then you go in and you maybe see a couple of regulars and you start your workout. In boutique and in our studios, you walk in, there's no checking in. I mean, you have your bike booked, right? You walk in, everybody knows your name, right? It's that feeling of community. It's not something that we just say a community. There's no choice to. You got 50 people in a room, and they're riding, and then you kind of get into your routine. So the staff knows you, the riders know you. I think that's another lure to boutique, is just more of that connection that you have with other people.
And when you say there's no check-in, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by?
There's literally no check-in. Your bike is, so you go online on your app, and you book your bike, and when you show up, your actually shoes are waiting for you. So if you booked bike 13, because that's your bike, right? It's in the position that you like. Some people will go out in advance to make sure they have their bike. And they show up, and then in your cubby hole, you'll have your shoes, your shoe size, if you don't bring your own, which most people like to just use the ones, and we provide those. And then you go in, you change, you get your shoes on, you go into the ride, you have your towel waiting for you and your water. And so you get in there, and that's it. There's no check-in process. There's no sneaking in. There's none of that, because it's not 9,000 people all sharing this one gym, right? You've got anywhere from 300 to 900 members in a boutique where it's 2,000 square feet. Everybody kind of knows who you are.
And you say, so with that check-in where you have someone and they say hi and you have that connection, what are the touch points within your model then where you kind of interact? There's some organized interaction from one of your staff to the member.
Yeah, it's the minute they walk in the door, right? So when you walk in, you're either a member or you're a guest, right? And everybody's greeted the same way. When you're a member, your pictures are there. We know who you are. The staff usually knows who you are. And then if you're not a member, obviously you walk in, you don't know the process. So we immediately have a general manager at every studio, and then in there some studios have assistants, and then we have staff that will help you out. And we call them CBXs, CycleBar experiences. So they're there to help you with your experience. So whether it's clipping in your shoes for the first time, which I had to get a lot of help with, and adjusting my seat of my bike. I didn't realize how complicated it was getting in there, but we take that away from it. So that way you show up, we get your shoes on, we show you how to clip in, which in my opinion, in the sales world and as being an owner of your studio, it gives you so many different touch points versus walking around and asking you what your goals are and doing a qualification and trying to figure out, how am I going to sell you today? You're servicing them. Like they're walking in, their name's on their locker when they come in, right? Because we know they're coming, because as a guest, you have to register for your bike still. So you have your free guest pass or you're paying a discount for a ride. So when they show up, their name's already on their locker and it says welcome. Right, and then everybody in that room, that community rooms we call it the locker space, they all know that your first time because your name's on your locker. So everybody's greeting you, welcoming you. The staff takes you into the ride. They're showing you how the shoes work, because a lot of people have never rode before. They don't know how the clips work. They don't know why you adjust the seats and the handlebars a certain way. So you're actually educating them, and you're getting them kind of excited, because it's a little nervous, right? It's your first ride, and they make you feel like it's premium service. You feel like, man, this is great. They're walking me through, every step of the way. The instructor then comes over, because the instructor knows, they have a list, they know that you're new. The instructor then walks over, asks you if you have any questions, and checks in on you time to time during the class. And then after that ride, you just felt like you got premium service, great hospitality. It felt great. The riders were congratulating you, and it's hard to kind of not get sucked into that. And at the end of it, it literally turns into, so let's talk about the different options. It's not a hard sell. It's not a across the desk presentation. It's literally, here are the different options. Right. And that was, I think, the biggest change that we made in CycleBar, was that I feel like when you look at what you said earlier from selling 25 years ago versus now, I think a lot of companies made the mistake thinking that sales is bad. And there's unfortunately more bad salespeople out there than good salespeople. So because there's more bad salespeople, they think a good salesperson talks a lot, which is usually not the case. Right. So I think that a lot of boutique, and I see some struggling, especially some of the mom and pops, because they think, hey, look, we're not going to be a big box gym, so we're not going to do memberships, we're not going to sell, and we're going to build it and they'll come. And they realize very quickly that model doesn't work. And that's kind of what happened to CycleBar. Right.
And when you say about sales then, what is it? Are you still selling the fact that people are going to get in shape and lose weight? Or, because it sounds like there's a lot of different elements, and I suppose everybody, or the traditional gyms are like, come to us, lose weight, etc. How would you describe what you're, and I'll use the word sales, what you're selling to the people, or is it different depending on who you're targeting?
No, we're selling an experience.
Okay.
It really is, because regardless of your fitness goals, the experience is what gets you to those goals. It's not really focusing on those goals. It's not saying, hey, we're going to do weigh-ins every week or every month. We're not checking body fat percentages. No. It's literally, this is one piece that's going to get you there, and if you have fun and you enjoy it, we basically trick them into exercising. Right. It literally is. It's the best kept secret, because you go there for a party on a bike, and I didn't really understand it because I wasn't a rider until I came to CycleBar, and my first class blew me away. I mean, it blew me away. It was so much fun, And as you mentioned, I love music. I still haven't had a reggae class yet, but maybe it'll pop up. But it's the energy and the song selections are really key. You know, the way they select the music goes to the different choreography and the different beats. So there's a lot of thought that goes into the playlist. It's not just, hey, I'm going to play these 10 or 20 songs. It literally, there's thought that goes into every song on the up or the down, and it's amazing, because then you see the instructors have a lot more passion in that. You know, if you're teaching at a big box gym or even some other ones, and again, it's not trying to take away from the big box, it's just, it's a different stage. You know, you get there and you have all these extra tools. You have all these boards that help you with lighting, so you get to play with your own lighting. You get to then help with your music, right? It just makes it an overall experience. So they're literally on stage performing versus teaching a class. They're literally performing for the 50 people in there.
Hey, so it sounds like, in terms of the circle that you're competing in, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're no longer competing with other fitness businesses. It sounds like, you know, you're expanded that circle where, you know, a restaurant, a nightclub, a bar seems to be kind of almost in your catchment area, because you're coming there to be entertained, not just for fitness. Do you think that, let's talk about the industry then, do you think it's probably a good thing that it's not just about body fat percentage and losing an extra few pounds, and as an industry, you know, as we mature, probably changing the sales proposition is something we should consider a bit more?
I do. I think it should be very conversational. You know, I think there's still, I think there's a ton of value in scripts. There's a ton of value in education. I think it really comes down to, I don't think that as an industry we do as well at training our salespeople on how to sell as we used to 20 years ago. I really feel like we did a better job back then. And I think that what's happened is some companies have gone away from commissions. I think some companies have kept commissions, but then they drive the end result versus the process. And when you do that, you see sales drop, because the consumer doesn't want to be hard sold. They don't want to be closed. That's the biggest difference.
They know,
no
they
one
want to see
closed.
it coming, don't they? I guess.
Yeah, they do. And they want to be in control. The biggest difference now is there's so much information. There's more information on my phone right now, right? And I'm still in this stat, but there's more technology on our phone than NASA had when they put the first man on the moon, right? So the days of I'm gonna wow them with this new information is gone. I mean, anybody can get any question they answered by asking Siri, right? You're not going for information. You're going to be inspired. You're going to either get the experience or you need someone to help hold you accountable. There's a little bit of people that just don't want to read an article and they don't want to get educated, so they'll pay for that, right? And in my opinion, it's a small percentage, but I think if the salesperson does it right, it's you're letting the guest or the prospect be in control, and you allow them to kind of dictate that. And you know, a lot of times in sales, if you're not talking and you're asking the right questions, you actually really are in control. They feel like they're in control, but you're the one asking the questions, which means you're leading the conversation. But you don't see that. You see a lot of times the questions are very calculated, and they're all around kind of overcoming your objections versus really getting to know somebody, and then introducing them to your community. And I think that's where people want to feel like they belong. They know the routine. They know that, hey, let's go back to my desk and talk about your goals, which are, I'm going to really dig into this, and then I'll take you on a tour. And on the tour, you're just selling all the different pieces of your gym versus asking them what they would like, right?
Yeah.
And to me, in my opinion, that's not what the consumer wants. They want to talk about what's important to them. They want to try it out. They want to experience it, right? And it doesn't mean you still can't get them to enroll in their first visit, because there's nothing wrong with that. That's what we should be doing. That's what we should be asking for the sale. And that was kind of what I've seen in just CycleBar, just speaking exclusively to our company. There was such a concern of being that bad sales company that there was zero sales process. So no sales process. I mean, you weren't even allowed to present in the studio. You had to refer them to the website. So before we purchased the company, that was the process. Everything was done online. There was no presentations. There was no selling. And literally, we just came in and started asking for the sale. And I mean, our studio revenue's up year over year. I mean, we just our 12th month now consecutive double-digit growth. I mean, we're 30% over prior year in studio sales. So, and that's just by average people learning how to sell and ask for the sale, right? So I think that you look at just those numbers and just our company alone, I mean, it just tells you the upside of not asking versus asking.
And I guess when we use the word selling, and people have got lots of different pictures when you say that word, but I guess what and you're doing this to me now is we're not kind of selling, but it's more explaining people, based on what they want, what is available to them. Like, I didn't realize some of the things you've said about CycleBar. Now I'm actually quite curious. I'm sure a lot of people would be, because I'm not really into cycling, probably like you were, but the other parts sound quite interesting. So I suppose there's an industry, and I'm going to come on to this question in a moment, but a lot of cases we feel as though we're here to help people and we shouldn't be selling, particularly in terms of instructors. What's your thoughts about the trainers themselves being part of that process? Should they be helping the sales process, if we use that word? Do your instructors sell?
I think you have to be comfortable with the word selling, because selling is building value in the product that you're offering and getting someone to think it's worth what you're selling it for. I mean, at the end of the day, that's sales, right? How you do it is what usually rubs people the wrong way. What you say, sometimes, I would say a lot of times, we don't earn the right to ask for the sale. Right. We don't earn the right to get a couple of objections, right? And
why is that? Because you've not presented things correctly, do you think? Or?
You haven't given enough information. You haven't heard them out. You haven't shown them what they wanted to see. You haven't connected with them. And in my opinion, you have to do that before you ask for the sale. And a lot of times I think, the salesperson goes through their checklist of what they want to talk about. They may ask questions, but the questions don't seem authentic enough. They seem like they're at the DMV asking the 6-point questions. And then when you ask for the sale, the person's kind of not there, right? And they don't feel like they have to give you an answer, and a lot of times they won't, right? Yeah. And so then that's when it comes into a hard sell, because if that salesperson is now being pressured to hit a number and pressured that they have to sell you because maybe you're the last couple guests of the day, then it's an unfavorable experience. So, I think everybody loves to sell. I don't care who it is. My 10-year-old daughters, if they convince me to go watch a movie they want, they're stoked because they convinced me to watch a movie that I don't want to watch. That's sales, right? I have had trainers in the past that tell me, I don't believe in sales. I'm passionate about science and helping people lose weight. But then that same person walks over to me and gives me a high five when someone just bought 20 sessions from them. They're happy because their value was conveyed to that guest, so that member, that says you're worth me spending that much money. What they don't like is the perception of how you're supposed to sell if someone says no, right? There's that, especially like you mentioned, trainers. If you're selling a gym membership and someone says no, there's no hit to the ego, because then you're going to justify it as they didn't like the gym, it wasn't busy, it was somebody else's fault, unfortunately, right? Whereas the trainer, it's personal. They said no to me, right? And that's a lot harder to swallow. So I think it's the rejection of the sell that people don't like. But I think that if you do it the right way, and they say no, it shouldn't feel uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for the guest and for you if you do it wrong. And I think that's where a lot of people say they don't believe in the sell. Yeah. And that's what I saw in boutique fitness. A lot of these like boutiques, owners and companies are telling people that's their value proposition. We don't believe in memberships. We don't sell you here. Right? It's to kind of give the negative vibe that some people get from a big box gym. That made them successful, by the way, right? These businesses are still around and they have 9,000 members. So even though you and I can argue all day long if that's effective or not, they have 9,000 members, 8,000 members, 6,000 members, right? But I don't think it's the sales process that got the members there. I think it was the location. I think it was the facility, right? But when you look at boutique, if you overcorrect because you don't want to be a bad salesperson, then there's going to be people that should be working out there. You just didn't build the value to them. They don't think it's worth $150 or $180 a month, right? Or they don't think it's worth, $25 for that ride or less, right? So they didn't do that, and then that person has to go home and they get caught up in life, right? With kids, work, and they don't go back to that website. So, what we've done, and it just exponential, was more of how do we take the learnings of the last 20 years, 30 years in the fitness space, and then how do we kind of make that for boutique? And that's the biggest changes. It's having recurring revenue, not just packages. It's actually having a sales process, having a general manager focused on sales, but it's also educating them how to sell the right way. And I think that, to me, I think it's us being comfortable with the word sales and telling people that. I mean, we have conversations all the time with our staff that, you'll ask, obviously a different age group now from 20 years ago, but I'll ask the question, what's the number one way that you can see if the value that you're offering to your community is there? And the first answer is usually Yelp. right? And that's not it. It's do you have enough members? Do you have 500 members? If you do, you're doing something right, because they'll just make up a reason. They'll say they moved, they don't have time, and people will leave because it's not worth it, right? At the end of the day, if the consumer is willing to spend money in your business, that means you have a good product offering, right? The other piece is, how do I get them to stay, right? And that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. So I think, and it's interesting, particularly for a lot of people who are listening, and I've seen people in both camps, but I think you're right. You've probably, particularly in your business, there's a ton of systems, because your business is duplicating that in hundreds and hundreds of locations, so you need to have a good system. And there's probably a lot of things behind the scenes that are very valuable to the person that comes in. And yes, they could try and Google some of the answers, but they're not really going to understand how it relates to them specifically. And I suppose you're right. If you change that word sales to, really you're here to help people understand the full detail of what goes on, because how are they going to find that out? Are we going to let them go to the website and try and work it out themselves, or are you there to really explain to them, look, this is what it does and this is how it relates to what you're trying to do? Then really you're there, you're not selling, depending on how you define it, but you're actually helping people, aren't you, make good choices.
I enjoy the word sales because I feel like I want to own it. Yeah. I feel like I'm a good salesperson, and I want people around me that are good salespeople, because you're helping, right, to what your point is. But that's sales. You're building value in your product, right? And to me, that's what separates everybody, and it's how you teach them to do that. Like you said, systems, processes, right? It's how do you get them there, because most people want to say no when they're making a purchase decision, right? They just do, and they don't want to say no. So they would rather say, let me think about it. Let me see if I can use it. Let me see if I can afford it, right? You'll have all the different reasons, but really is procrastination, because they do love it, right? And a lot of times you ask a simple question, what didn't they like? And they have a hard time even answering that, because they loved it, right? If your product is there. So I think it really comes down to having somebody that genuinely cares about the person that they're talking to. So if Tevya Selly, who's our director of education, she always tells our franchisees when they come in for our discovery days that, she would never ever buy a franchise, a Subway franchise, because she's vegan. She just doesn't want to be around meat all day, right? And same thing with your salespeople, that if you don't love the brand that you're working for, and if you're not passionate about what you're offering, then you should go do something. There's so many other sales jobs out there. Like if you're not passionate about fitness, you're never going to be good, because you'll sell, but it's not going to stick. They're not going to bring referrals for you because they didn't enjoy the sales process. They felt like a number. In fitness, you have to genuinely care about the people that you're selling. And I think this industry a lot more than others, because you could sell TVs and not even watch TV. You could sell computers and not even have an Apple, right? And sell an Apple. I think anybody can sell an Apple. But at the end of the day, you have to be passionate about fitness. And I think that the processes and everything you talked about has to be taught. Because then if you don't have the steps to follow, then it's going to be really hard for you to be comfortable and be authentic and help people out. Because that way, when they tell you that they want to think about it, you've earned the right, because you spent time with them. You've like I talked about, you got them on the bike, you taught them how the bike works. The instructor made you feel comfortable. All the people in class welcomed you in, part of the community. And a lot of times, if you just ask for the sale a couple more times without closing, they say yes. They want to join. It's just that instinct. Like I want to think about it. Yeah. Everybody wants to think about it, right? Yeah. So to me, that's more the sales piece. It's not the old Rolodex where you're going to have every single objection ready, right? And then you're going to have to then drill them down 3 or 4 times before they say yes. I think it's just asking for it multiple times.
Yeah. And how does that change for the franchises you sell? Because I guess a big part of your business is not necessarily just selling to your members and guests. It's to the franchise. So is that process different, and is there an element of kind of almost saying, are they the right people to represent your brand? Because as you said, if you're very much about passionate people, so is there a process of weeding out the ones that you don't think are right?
100%. Anthony Geiser kind of taught me that right from the get-go. It's our customer is the franchisee. And we have to keep that the focus, because if we treat our customer right, which is a franchisee, it trickles down to the rider, to our member. A big thing that we do in discovery days is we really want to make sure that the prospect that we're talking to is going to fall in line and be a good franchisee. Because just because you're a successful entrepreneur doesn't mean you're going to be a good franchisee.
Probably the opposite, I would say.
Yeah, a lot of times. But I'll tell you,
because entrepreneurs are quite rebellious and want to do the things.
100%, right? And I've had some where they've owned up to that. I mean, we've disqualified some people literally after the first day because they wouldn't get on the bus. They wanted to drive their own Escalade, right? And literally said thanks but no thanks. If you can't even get on the bus, you can't be a franchisee. It's not going to work. So a lot of times we're looking for that. We want to see people that are passionate, and they may not be passionate, but a family member is, and that's why they're doing it. And we're okay with that too, because our model is really about us creating a system for them to operate in. I don't want the franchisee to be the general manager. I just don't, and I don't want people buying jobs either. So that's another big part in franchising, is that if you're selling jobs, it makes it really hard for you to really grow their business for them because they're now too close to it.
When you say that, what do you mean by selling jobs then?
So some people aren't happy with what they're doing, and they've saved up some money, or they have some friends, and they want to start a business. And in their mind, they're thinking, I can pay myself this much money out of the business, and I'll be the general manager. And so now you're working a job. You're there 40 hours a week as the general manager. You're driving leads, you're converting, you're cleaning, you're doing all that. But they didn't buy the franchise for that reason, right? They bought it because they wanted to be an owner. They wanted to be an entrepreneur. So our goal is to make sure they understand that if you want to be the entrepreneur, you have to be the owner and you have to hire a general manager. You can still be there 60 hours a week. You can still clean equipment. You can still sell memberships. You can still help do laundry, right? You can do all that work as the owner. Right, and our philosophy is really getting a general manager in every single studio and having that manager responsible for doing the work of a general manager. And I think that's given us the biggest lift from what we call version 1 versus version 2, because now we've changed it. Going back.
And why is that? I'm just trying to understand that. So do you want the people who sort of buy into these franchises to sort of almost be, slightly away from the day-to-day running? Or I didn't quite understand the difference. So the reason to put in a manager then, as opposed to sort of hiring a person who wants to be a general manager, what's the difference again?
So the difference is a lot of the entrepreneurs that want to buy a franchise with us, they don't have fitness sales background. Right. So they're already going to have a hard time converting people into memberships.
Okay, I get it.
Right?
Yeah.
So then now you have the owner that doesn't have that experience, and they're trying to pre-sell before they open, and they're going through that piece. Those 2 months are crucial. You want someone that already has it. And a lot of times we get people from big box gyms that have that experience, and we just have to retrain them on how we sell. Right. And by being the owner, you need somebody in a franchise unit working on the business, not in the business, right? And it doesn't work if the owner is working in the business. Especially because a lot of our franchisees do 3 units, because that's where you really start to kind of leverage your labor and your returns. So we need them already looking for site number 2 and site number 3 and building their team and being a leader versus how many leads did I get today? How many phone calls did I make today? How many appointments do I have today? How many no-shows? I got to follow up my no-shows. There's a lot of work that goes into selling gym memberships. Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the sales, the results comes from your follow-up. It comes from that work that when the guest isn't there. Yeah. And a general manager doesn't have that time, right? And an owner forgets that, they can leave to go to their kids' event or going to a sporting event, but if they don't have the GM and they leave, who's running the store, right? And that was part of the issues with our version 1, was there were no general managers. The studios are only open 4 to 5 hours a day. There was no recurring membership. I mean, the instructors would literally unlock the door, teach the class, and when class was over, they would lock up, right? So it was really kind of presented as it's not even a full-time gig, right? As an owner, so you could do all these other things. There was no sales process.
Was it a pay-as-you-go model then?
It was. It was packages, yeah.
And you saying that you don't think that's a good business model to have? No.
It's not, because it's not predictable. And when you own a business, you want to be predictable, right? And it's also been proven too that when you do the pay-as-you-go and the packages, about 20% of those fall off, right? Where you do a reoccurring EFT model, 5%, right? Because they have to physically say, I'm out, I want to stop coming, right? So a lot of times they'll just be like, you know what, I got in there, I did the class, I'm excited again, I don't want to quit. Right, and they'll stay on a lot longer, and it's less of a hit. You're not having to put these big payments up front every 3 or 4 months. You're just paying a smaller amount each month.
Right. And so that's better for the individual business owners then. What are some of the, okay, I'll put it a different way. So I guess in franchise, you have people that probably have restaurants and different types of businesses. Do you think that what you're offering could fit to someone who's just good at doing franchises, or do they have to understand fitness? Because my guess is fitness is a little bit different than maybe a restaurant where you kind of got your food, you train them how to do the food, and it's fairly automated. Or is it, is it the same or is it different?
I can't say with certainty, but I think it is different. The biggest part with us is that we want to be involved as they let us. So one of the things that we do at Exponential is that we're big on systems. So, when CycleBar was originally founded and started, it was by a group of business people that had great sales background, and they built up the business, but they didn't understand fitness. In their corporate office, there was nobody in charge of sales. So these great salespeople that built a great product, a great brand, great offering. I mean, the reason that we bought CycleBar was because everybody that took classes there loved it. I mean, the instructors were phenomenal. It was a great experience, but the economics didn't make sense. And so when we dug into it, there wasn't a single person that worked in their office that was in charge of studio sales. It was all hospitality, or it was cycling and marketing. And so when we dug into that it would fit perfectly in the Expo model, because the way that we do it is you'll have a director of sales, you have regional salespeople, right? So we do weekly conference calls for general managers. We do weekly calls for franchisees around sales. We do weekly calls for operations. So we have the infrastructure to actually help them manage their managers. So these are all recorded calls. So we send these calls, that we have them on a LMS system. The franchisee can listen to it on their way home. Right, they can hear what their manager was taught, and they're on these calls. We even do these for pre-sales. So we do a weekly call with all these pre-sales, and it's with the owner or the manager or both. So to us, to get people that are from restaurant industry or from other franchises, we felt like we had to create that infrastructure to make sure that we supported them, because you could see other franchises in the fitness space, they don't do that.
No.
I mean, you'll even have people that will tell
Probably
you.
just a brand in a lot of cases.
Totally, right? But we do believe the fitness space is different, and if you're going to drive recurring revenue and you're going to have the lead flow and you're going to try to convert leads, the person has to know how to do that. And that's where we don't want to have to rely on the franchisee to be an expert. We don't want them to be an expert. We want them to be the entrepreneur. We want them to be the owner, right? And that's the value that they have. But if they get too close to it, then they lose that vantage point. They lose that piece of it. So now we might as well just have corporate stores. That's the value of having a franchise for us is obviously the CapEx, that we don't have to open these things up. But the value is you have an entrepreneur that's giving that vantage point and that experience. Because I can tell you, we have so many managers that work for us now that worked at big box gyms across the nation, and when I talk to them, they said they love working for an entrepreneur. They love working for a franchisee. It's a lot different than a corporate gig, right? So even these managers kind of feel the difference, and it works as long as the franchisee understands that this is the process that we're going to follow and do that.
So you guys are definitely breaking new ground. There's a couple out there. So boutiques, I guess, are generally 1 and 2, 3, 4 or 5 max, but you guys are in the hundreds, and there's probably only a few out there like you at the moment. So it's a fairly new territory, and I guess with that expansion, if you look at the big box, it's fairly simple because it's quite a simple model. You put your equipment in there. And even in the low cost, it's fairly automated. People come in, they follow their own process. I call it DIY fitness. The boutique is quite different because my experience is it's heavily reliant on that instructor, what they say, what they do, and how they create the class. What's your thoughts on your potential in terms of expansion because of getting the right people in there? Because not anybody can go in and teach an amazing spin class, can there? There's thousands of spin instructors, but there's a smaller amount of really exceptional ones. What's your thoughts on that, and how? Because you've got a lot of different, as part of your group, there's a lot of different sort of fitness genres. How do you tackle that?
So each brand is ran independently.
Okay.
So the one thing that Anthony was really adamant about when we started this was that each brand president runs their brand. So CycleBar was the second modality, second business into the Expo brand. And from the very beginning, he says, we're going to run these things as their own businesses. We're going to share resources. We're going to collaborate. And we're going to work together. We meet with Anthony every Monday, and we go through our businesses and we share experiences and we help each other out. But the businesses have to be run. They all have their own director of marketing. They all are CMO. They all have their own director of education, director of sales, real estate. We have our own project managers. I mean, we all have, regardless if there's 2 locations, 150 locations, or 350 locations, and now 500 locations in Pure Barre. So every brand, now the depth chart is a little bit longer in the locations that the brands that have more locations, right, to support it, but the skeleton's the same in every single one. So when it comes to finding instructors for CycleBar, we have our director of education, but a lot of it is the support they get. So, a lot of boutique fitness, they go after an instructor just by money, right? Just saying, hey, look, we're going to pay you, we're going to try to steal you. And it doesn't even mean they're the best instructor. Sometimes you're in the best time spot, right? I mean, maybe you're helping somebody out by taking their bad employee away. So what we do is, we wanted to kind of amplify that. So the old way was that the franchisee would literally take a video on their iPhone of somebody doing an audition. They would upload it into a doc, and then the master instructor would watch it and say yes or no. And then literally hopefully had enough people to come for an audition, and we do a boot camp where we go out and it's a 4-day training, and we dig in and we teach them the CycleBar way. What we've done since then, since we bought the company, was we now put in our infrastructure. So now we use a live streaming. So now you don't have to upload those videos. So now our master instructors set an appointment, and these auditions come in, and they can watch it live and actually coach the person live. Like, we do our seats a little differently, or we do the handlebars, how we adjust them. They'll give certain cues. I'm not going to try to act like I know the cues, but they'll give them certain cues that they were doing wrong, because that's how our competitors teach, or that's how they learned, right? And then you can immediately see if they're coachable, right? So what we've seen is a huge increase in being able to get instructors that way. The other part of it is the continued education. So we do something to help our franchisees by getting master and senior master instructors. So what that does is that in the market, we have different regions, and if somebody's taught for a certain period of time and they've now qualified from our master, our director of education, Hvac, that person now is certified to do those auditions. They go out and they do the boot camps, which they're paid by us. So that way, it's a way for this franchisee now to have an instructor that's already great, right? They teach a great class. They're probably educating people in their own studio, but now they get to leave. They get to go on a plane somewhere in the US. They teach people, and they come back excited, because when you open a new studio, the energy's through the roof, right? So they come back, and that spreads to their writers and to the other instructors. But it also now allows them to be a full-time employee without the franchisee having to foot the whole bill.
Right.
So just structure like that has made it a lot easier for us to find talent that way. And then we also do help with recruiting. So we'll actually now have we have, I think, 14 master instructors now that a franchisee can pay for them to come out, and they'll spend a week there, and they will shop competition, they'll go around, they'll help them find talent, and then get them trained and get them onboarded. So there's different ways, because to us, the talent is the main part.
Yeah.
Right? And I know a lot of businesses are scared to do that, but they do have the structure. Another big piece to how we teach is, if we told them exactly how to teach every class, you would take away their creativity, you'd take away their energy. So we're really big on the structure. So what we do, we created a structure that they have to follow, but they pick their own music, right? They pick their own choreography. They do it all themselves, as long as you're staying in that framework. So then now, as an instructor, you're compensated pretty well. You love the environment that you're in. There's upward mobility where you can actually go up and become a master or a senior master instructor. You keep seeing all these locations open, because when we bought the company, there were 97 locations. Now we have 150 open, and more, right? You talked about the 3+. So it makes it an environment for instructors to wanna be there. And that goes right back to what I was saying earlier, is, do you want to work at a corporation? Do you want to work for an entrepreneur? And the entrepreneurs make it feel, it's just, when you walk into these studios, so even though we're doing everything systemized and running it like a corporate business, it still feels like a local boutique, kind of mom and pop.
Yeah. And with recruiting those trainers, and I had this conversation with a few people in the past, but are you looking for instructors that are just very good technically, or are you looking for people that are a bit more kind of performers, or an ideal balance of both?
Both. I mean, we've taken, and I love saying we because I like to act like I'm a part of the process. I have nothing to do with the site selection or the selection of these instructors. But Tevi and her team have actually taken people that have never been on a bike before. And we have stories of Zumba instructors that are now cycle stars because they can teach the technique, right? You can't teach rhythm.
Right. Okay.
So the rhythm is actually the most important part because a lot of the things that we do is to music. Where you go to some certifications, they tell you not to go to music. So it's almost the total opposite. So you can't teach rhythm, you can't teach personality. So as long as they have the right personality and as long as they have rhythm, the techniques can be taught. And it may take a little bit longer for those people, but we also have a digital system now where they can actually go online and watch videos and go through those videos and then come back and then retry out again or re-audition again,
right.
Which is another tool that we give the franchisees so they can have somebody that maybe they have a huge following at their local gym. Maybe they have a huge social media following and they have the right attitude and they have rhythm, but they just couldn't grasp the way that we teach. Doesn't mean you give up on them. No. You give them access to the videos. They have a password, they log in, franchisee can see if they're watching the videos so they know they're engaged. And a lot of times we'll get them because they want to make the switch, right? And most instructors would rather teach at a CycleBar because, like I said, they have their master control. They have lighting, they have music. I mean, everything's here, right? And everybody's got water and everybody's got their towels and it's just got that good vibe. You even got bananas if you need some carbs, right? So they have that versus going into something else that they're at. A lot of them love the experience. And then it also challenges them too, because if you're a trainer, if you're an instructor, a lot of things that motivate you is learning new things. So when you have this network of master instructors that are doing things differently, even in our trainings, we don't have the same person teaching the different pieces to it because then you get used to one style of teaching and now we're conditioning robots, right? We don't want that. So we have different instructors with different styles and different personalities because we want people to kind of feel that. That's why I call them stars, cycle stars. That's what we call them. We don't call them instructors because we want them to be the star, right? And so I'm excited because the more locations we open, the easier it is to find more talent. And we're finding that now, especially in regions where there's multiple locations popping up, it makes it a lot easier to find instructors.
Yeah. How long does it take for them to be, I guess, go from sort of you first meeting them to be qualified? Like, what's the length?
It all depends on the individual.
Right.
Like I said, if they have rhythm, they've been doing it for a while, a lot of it's just tweaks to the way that we teach. Right. And they pick up on it very quickly. Yeah. Some it takes a little bit longer. And like I said, now we don't have to fly out there and do it. And we have to upload videos, we can do these live streamings now, and now we can get back to them quicker instead of waiting 6 weeks to get back and say, okay, now we're ready, or going back and forth on emails with critiquing what they need to work on. It's all streamlined.
And outside of them going and training in other facilities, is there any ongoing things that you do to kind of keep the level up there?
So the one thing is the master instructor kind of pathway to get there. A lot of them are really excited about that. They're also compensated on their class counts, right? So they're really motivated to fill it in. So they're on social media, they're promoting it. There's some pride too, right? There's pride to know that you filled up a room. If there's a wait list, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. But what we do is we do bi-weekly calls, and we also have, as I didn't mention, lead instructors. So every studio has a lead instructor, and then they're on conference calls as well, and they get developed, and then they go and they develop their team. So to us, we're trying to take the big box corporate kind of feel of education, but give that to our small boutique studios that are out there and allow them to use that resource from us to help educate, motivate, inspire. And a lot of times you'll see that people won't leave because of that. They love it, right? And they do. There's so much competition out there, and we pay well. But at the same time, we've had people leave to bigger names because it was a bigger name and they thought it was great. And we've had instructors leave and do that, and they're just like, man, it's just different. Like I don't have the flexibility, or I don't have that same autonomy, right? And I think that really helps separate us when we're looking for instructors. Right.
So I just wanted to talk about Exponential because it's probably a name that not everybody is familiar with. It seems as though they're the kind of new kid on the block, although I know there's some history. So just a little bit, who are they? What makes them special? Why have they been as successful as what they are?
Yeah, so Exponential was never supposed to be forward-facing. If you talk to Anthony, now we have to update the website because people are now looking at our website, which it wasn't supposed to be really for anybody to get on. His vision was Exponential was going to kind of be in the back end of this. But Anthony, for those that don't know Anthony Geisler, I mean, he was doing boutique fitness before it was even a thing. I mean, because he was a member of LA Boxing back in the early 2000s, and he was a member there and loved it so much he bought it, and he ended up growing that over 100 locations in 10 years. Sold it to the UFC gym, which is how my paths crossed with Anthony. But yeah, so he opened up 100 of those locations, sold the company, then went out and bought Club Pilates. And Club Pilates was based out of San Diego. They had about 28 locations, 30 locations open at the time. So he acquired that company and literally put in his process. It's the same process that we do today. You go in, you rebrand, right? Because a lot of times the branding isn't really, it's not on point for mainstream, with the exception of CycleBar. CycleBar was the only the brand that we bought that we didn't do a rebrand, because they did a great job at that. But he goes in, he rebrands it, puts in a front desk, because there's usually not a front desk, and especially like Club Pilates or a boxing studio, right? You get merchandise, you start selling merchandise, you go to reoccurring revenue, you hire a general manager that has a sales background, you start focusing on driving lead flow, converting leads, measuring mix of memberships, and then you start kind of driving that. And so, he took that business and literally opened up 330 locations, I believe it was, in less than 2 years. And they're sold out. I mean, I think they've probably got 20 territories left in the US to sell. They have over 800 sold right now. So he partnered up with private equity and said, let's do this times 8, right? So the first
in terms of 8 different brands. With,
yep, 8 different companies, all within Exponential. So Exponential, again, was just going to be kind of the parent company of all these different brands. So then we bought CycleBar, and then after CycleBar, we did Stretch Lab, which is a smaller footprint, but it's stretching, same idea, same concept. Then we did Row House, which is a New York-based company, and then after Row House, we did AKT. It's Anna Kaiser Technique. She's a celebrity trainer based out of Manhattan, really dance background, and so dance and fitness kind of put together, which it's exciting. And after that, we did Yoga 6. So that was another local San Diego company, and then the next brand is going to be a running concept, which is coming pretty soon. And then Pure Barre was the big one. They have 500 plus units. They're now our largest company in the portfolio. So we're going to have 8, and that's what we're going to kind of run with.
Right. And is the plan to take that internationally, or are you just focused on the
So CycleBar is already internationally.
Okay.
Dubai, we're opening up in the UK here pretty soon, and then Canada. But we have a lot of interest internationally. And the nice thing about international is that you could do expo. You could be expo in your country. There's a lot of interest right now in that, and now they can do multiple brands versus just having to do one. Domestically, we're selling them all individually, but eventually, Anthony's vision is to do an expo pass, and that expo pass is really kind of like a class pass, where it's just our brands.
Right.
So we're gonna have 2,000 locations. So now you have an app that you can go in, and he's really conscious now. He's learned a lot, from the businesses that he's developed, and reciprocity never works, right? One of the franchises are pissed because usually it's whoever uses the location that most gets the revenue. What he kind of envisioned is more of it drops credits. So every time you go in, you have a certain amount of times a month that you can use it. And the franchisee where they used it, you get paid for that, right? And it's a nice way for our franchisees to do an add-on sell as well, right? Because you're getting the same service. Now you can use all Expo brands. So that's kind of the idea with Exponential, but you get the resources behind it. He has a team, so if I need help on real estate, or if I need help with construction, because I have my own people, but if I need help, right, they're there as a resource, and it just makes it easier knowing that you have them down the hallway, and then also meeting with Anthony, like I was talking about. A lot of these managers love working for entrepreneurs. I'm working for a pure entrepreneur. He does not run his business like most of the people I've worked with in the past. He's a different individual. He's extremely smart, and his whole thing is he wants to make sure that we stay authentic to boutique, that we're not turning this into a corporate kind of conveyor belt where this is how we're going to do it at every brand, right? We try to get it as close as possible, use same operating systems and things like that. But it's amazing. Every Monday meeting, it's very entertaining, and he's a driver. I mean, I've never ever witnessed somebody. I mean, the guy's working 7 days a week. It's nuts. He has two new babies, but it kind of inspires us to drive because nothing's done quick enough for him, and it's amazing how much we've grown just in these last couple of years, not even a couple of years. I mean, technically Expo started about a year ago, right? A little over a year ago, and now we're going to have 8 brands here by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I know some people don't like talking about themselves, but this is about you for this podcast. What would you say you personally have, you started off as working in a fitness club, selling memberships, and now you're the president of one of the most sort of successful brands out there at the moment. What are some of the things that you've learned and I guess have sort of helped get you to where you are? And I'm really talking to people that are probably like who you were when they were coming into the industry, sort of having these dreams about where they want to go. What would you say some of the big lessons and things that you kind of keep with you today that are foundations to your career?
I think the biggest one I learned was to go with my gut and my intuition. I think earlier on I didn't listen to it, and there are a lot of things from little things from how I sold 20 years ago that would have worked, to how I operated or how I managed. I think that my intuition was usually right, and I think as I got better, I started making more decisions on logic, so I could reinforce my decision, and if the logic, would go there first versus my intuition. And I think that over time, and Anthony's actually pulled this out of me a lot, is you got to move quick, and usually your gut's right. You got to reinforce it with logic, right? So you always use logic, but I think my looking back, I think that was a big one. I think the other one is that patience. I think that I was always striving to get promoted. I was always trying to get to the next promotion, and even though that's not a bad thing, I think I got caught up too much on that, because I've always heard people say enjoy the journey. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I want the journey to be as quickly as possible so I can actually get to that next spot. But then when you get to the next spot, it's like, you're exhausted, you're killing yourself, then you get that promotion or that opportunity and you're not tired anymore. It's a rush, right? You just 2 weeks ago you were exhausted. Now you have a new opportunity, and now you're fully enthused, and you don't need sleep anymore, and you don't need a vacation, and you want to run. So I think a lot of it is being patient and really learning, because I was fortunate. I've had a lot of really good leaders. And a lot of them, like, you and I were talking before this, where, some people aren't fortunate to have leaders that actually will push experiences on you or kind of role model. And I think I was really lucky to have that structure coming up. I don't think I appreciated it at the time.
Who are some of the people that influenced you, or good positive role models from within the industry when you were?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, my dad was the first one. He's not in the industry,
Right.
but my dad gave me my first sales book. And
what was it?
It was, I think his name is Joe Giard. I hope I said his name right. He was the #1 car salesman in the world, and this was back in the early 90s, 1994, 95 is when I read the book. And my dad was pushing me on, hey, if you're going to go into sales, you need to learn your craft, right? And he was really supportive of it. And then, I would say that there's a lot of people at 24 Hour Fitness. I mean, that I worked with. There's people like Dean Pappas, that he's the COO of Gold's Gym now, that really kind of taught me about leadership and driving that. Curtis Harmon, he has a bunch of Crunch franchises in his own businesses right now. Seriously, there's probably 50 people I could name. Right. I heard Mark talk at one meeting back in 1995, and I said my goal is to work for him one day directly. And I got that at UFC Gym. I was in a position where I reported directly to him, and it was phenomenal. But since I left, I will tell you, I probably have grown more in the last year here than I have in the last 10 or maybe even 20. It's amazing how much, but I don't think I would have grown if I didn't have that foundation.
Right.
So when you're saying, looking back on it, there were ups, there was downs, there was moving, there's ton of reloading, which sometimes good, sometimes bad. But I will tell you, to have the foundation that you get from different leaders, and always trying to find, okay, why are they having me do this, and what's the reason for this, versus kind of justifying that this is dumb. Right? When you're young, you're just like, this doesn't make sense. You're getting in the way. I'm trying to sell, or I'm trying to service, whatever your job is. But I think it prepares you for when you either open up your own business. I think it prepares you for when you work for an entrepreneur the way that I am, where Anthony just wants results, and you got to figure it out. And I think what happened was I didn't realize everything that I learned until this year. I can literally pick up the phone at 11 o'clock at night, and Anthony will probably answer the phone. So I try not to call 11 o'clock at night, but he would answer. He texts back until midnight. But whenever I need him for something, he's there, right? And he's not there to give you an answer, which is why I'm so grateful for the mentors that I've had in the past that kind of helped me with that foundation, because he forces me to come up with the answer. And a lot of times the answer is there. I'm just so used to having people that I go to and they'll tell me what to do, right? Regardless of the position. I mean, even at my last position before CycleBar, I mean, I had people that I'd go to and they would just tell me, this is what you do. And now I have a CEO that's not going to tell me what to do.
Do you use that for your people as well? Do you take that approach or try to?
I am actually. I channeled my inner Anthony even this weekend, you know, and it's amazing because his style is to be you, right? You're not going to try to be someone else. And that's the other thing I would say is that thing that I learned over the time was just be you. You know, be comfortable with who you are. I was always trying to be who I was trying to impress. I was always trying to dress like them or act like them, say the things that I thought they wanted to say. And now looking back on it, I mean, it's growing, right? But I think that you being you and just being comfortable in that, using your gut, making the decisions. But then it comes down to you gotta make the right decisions too, right? You gotta seek multiple perspectives. So you have to talk to as many people as you can. You know, I talked to a lot of people on decisions, and I think coming up, there were times where I got coached by some leaders that you ask too many people their opinions, and two things happen. They're not happy because you didn't listen to their opinion, or it makes you seem weak that you don't know what you're doing. And I disagree with that. I feel like the more confident you are, the more perspectives you'll seek. You want to hear it because it either validates that, yeah, I thought that, and I disagree with you, I'm still going to go forward with where we're going, or it's going to give you another perspective where, like, I didn't think of that, maybe we should slow down, or I didn't think of that, but my direction's still going there. I'm still going to push through, right? Yeah. So I think that all that comes with time. You can't speed that up, and you know, you hear the climbing the corporate ladder. And I think it's more of that pyramid, right? You've heard of different pieces. More of like you have to build your foundation, because you can go, if you get promoted and you take over a great location, right? Let's just talk in the fitness space. Let's just say that you work for a big company, over 500 locations. There are times where in my career I've crushed it and I barely did anything because I had a great team, the market was great, and I looked like a hero, right? And it really wasn't me. And so when you have those times, a lot of times you're not learning anything. No. But you're on the top, you're talking in conferences, you're talking at kickoff meetings, right? And you're not really learning anything, so your foundation isn't being built, but you're climbing the ladder because then that got you another promotion. Right, yeah. And that got you another promotion. So to me, it's really, can you build that foundation from mistakes, right? The things that you've learned from, but really trying to figure out people that really have it figured out. You know, Anthony, in my opinion, you know, he's got it figured out and he's always working with the end in mind, but he's not the typical mentor. He's not going to sit here and tell you, let me tell you why I did this. So you have to pay attention. When he's talking, you have to listen, because that's where you're getting that, right? So, you know, just always wanting to learn and always trying to move up. So I definitely, you know, think I'm grateful for this past year. I'm grateful for CycleBar. I will tell you that working with the franchisees of CycleBar, you have people that are doing well, and unfortunately we had a lot that weren't when we bought the company, and it would be doing way worse if it wasn't for them. Like, we have some really good franchisees that weren't getting the support. They had no website to help them drive leads. You had a lot. I mean, I can go on for hours here talking about what they didn't have, but they're still around, right? They're still fighting. They're still driving revenue. So to me, you know, I'm not looking for what's next. I wasn't looking for what was next at my last job. I think when you get to the point of where you're not looking at your next promotion or you're not looking for your next opportunity is where you get like that confidence and the satisfaction, because you're trying to hit your numbers, right? You're trying to build a team, you're trying to inspire and lead. But I think when you get to the point where you're not thinking what's next is when you're really happy, because you know, that's to me kind of where I'm at right now.
I think that's an interesting point. I've been exactly where you are up until recently as well, really, and I spoke to people about this, and I think a lot of times if you are an achiever or goal driven, you're never where I am today. Even as good as today is, you're always like, well, that's where I'm going, and I'm kind of half living in there, and I suppose you kind of you end up sort of probably not making the most sometimes of where you are, giving it your best shot, and probably not getting the full enjoyment that you can have where you are. And I can't remember who it was, but it was almost saying, look, you know, even if it's not the right horse that you think you should be on, or you don't know whether it is or not, but just ride that horse as best as you can. You know, you can always get off it, but when you're on it, you know, just make the most out of everything. And I think that's a good lesson, because if you do that, then other things will just come in to opportunities, because you've done a great job and others have seen you do that or run a great business, as opposed to kind of always saying, well, I want to be over there, but you're never ever going to be there. You're always here, aren't you?
Always. And you know, I'll tell you too, it's funny that you say that, because you still have to be ambitious. You still have to, like, I want to take Anthony's job, right? And trust me, he wants to give it up, right? I mean, he right now is the only person that can do his job. And you know, so I'm still ambitious. I still want to go, but I'm really happy with the challenge that I'm dealing with right now. Like, it is the hardest job I've ever had, and I wake up happy every day, which is weird to me. It's usually when you're kind of in that kind of battle mode, you're not, and it's hard, but it's fulfilling, right? Yeah. And the other part to it too is what you're talking about, is when you're moving up. I think a lot of people, when they're trying to climb the ladder and they look at it that way, you got to either pass somebody up, right? Or you're so focused on moving up that you don't take care of your people. And in leadership, it's all about your people. Yeah. Like, I've been so lucky to have people around me that have been so caring about the team and the vision. And I mean, I'd probably have to list 200 people out there that would put in the extra hours, and would, when I did blow up, or if I made a bad leadership mistake, they rounded up for me. Right? Because they're like, you know what, this is not him. And so to me, it's how you take care of your people, because I've been around a lot of people, have been successful, and they manage up very well, but no one below them likes to work for them. Yeah. Right? I've seen that firsthand. And I think that, you know, you talk to a lot of people that have been under Anthony, he's got a long following because of that, right? And to me, I feel like that's where he and I have a lot of similarities, and I feel like if you build enough of that goes to your foundation. So not just the learnings that you're getting, the mentors that are helping you out, the life experiences that you're going through. I think the amount of people that you come in contact with and you build relationships with, they never leave, right? They're always there, and to me, that's a big part of the journey. So if I can go back, you know, 10, 20 years ago, I wish I would have enjoyed it, right? And because, you know, I keep hearing people say that, and I still have a long ways to go. So I'm not even halfway to where I want to be. Yeah. I'm not even halfway, but I think the perspective has shifted over this last year.
Yeah, maybe that's just comes with age. So talking about where you want to be, so what are some of your unachieved ambitions that you want to do as part of your career then?
I want to run a company. I want to run a business that, like I talked about, all the people that I've worked with in the past, where I have a home for them. Like, I would love to go back and either create something or run something in the future that I could house 100 to 200 employees that are people that I've worked with in the past, and really leverage that in a competitive, fun environment. What that is, I don't know. Because right now, whether it's here at CycleBar, and maybe I do it here, right? Whether it's Expo, I don't know. It's just, I can't see outside of CycleBar right now. It's and it's not because I'm focused on it. It's because I'm enjoying it. Like, I'm seeing it grow into the business right now that I feel is needed in the industry. And it's not just a sales thing on why CycleBar is good. It's just, it creates this cool environment that I like to be around. You know, because I'm not a gym guy. You know, I like to play sports. So when I'm playing basketball, my workouts are better because I'm trying to do things. My trainers are training me on functional things for basketball. You know, my wife loves to run 5-10 miles on a weekend. I hate running, right? So getting on a bike and doing a 45-minute ride is insane to me because it's fun. The music keeps me engaged. I can't even ride around my block for 45 minutes, right? So to me, that's kind of where my passion is right now. And then the other part of it is just seeing how far we can drive CycleBar, because you know, right now I'd say we're the third player. I mean, when it comes to branding, you got SoulCycle, you got Flywell, and you got us. But people don't realize we have more locations open than both of them combined, really? Right? So we're growing, and our master instructors, we're giving them a lot more tools than they've never had. I mean, we're just giving them so many resources, and I feel like the franchisees that we're bringing on right now, I mean, we're getting some top level executives. I mean, we're getting some COOs and some presidents of big brands that I'm blown away with. They're coming to our franchisee training and just talking to these guys, and they're excited and passionate about it for the same reasons. So I'm really excited to see kind of where we go with our brand, because I would, if you're talking about my first ambition, would be to have CycleBar as the number one player.
Yeah.
Because we can go Middle America.
Yeah.
Our competition can't, right? So I think that we can really grow the brand and make it a fun family brand.
Yeah. And what's your predictions or guesses on what's next for the industry? Do you think that there'll just be kind of, the boutique will continue to grow? Where do you see the low cost? Is there any changes that you think are likely to happen over the next 3 to 5 years, or do you think it will just get more perfected as where it is at the moment? Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, on that I have thoughts. I don't know how right I'm going to be, but I would say the low cost is here to stay, and I think that the premium high-end brand is here to stay. I don't know what's going to happen with the middle part, right? I think that they're at risk, in my opinion. But I think boutique's not going anywhere. It's people want specialization. And I'm not just talking about millennials, right? It's everybody. They want specialization. They want, if I'm going somewhere for something, I want that. I want it to be the best. I want the experience to be the best. And I think right now, people are seeing the value in that. And when they go there and they walk away, then they can go to their other boutique fitness, or they can go to their big box and pay their $10 a month or their $19 a month. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I think fitness is still going to be a thing. I think the big box gyms have their place on getting people the nutrition and getting them the personal training and doing those types of things. I do feel like when it comes to the dance or the cycling or the rowing or the stretching and the Pilates and the yoga, like all those things, I think that's where people want boutique, and that's why we have all those brands. That's why it's there, and that's why we feel like we're going to go all in on it, and all the data shows it. I mean, it definitely does. When we took over CycleBar, we didn't have memberships, and we went from, it's like that 6 minute mile kind of first person that did it, and everybody broke loose. So our first quarter, we were opening up studios. And mind, we just started the company, and we still don't even have our infrastructure set up yet. But we had studios opening up with luckily 60 to 70 members. This last quarter, we averaged 330 members before you even open your doors. So when people are saying boutique fitness, they don't want to do reoccurring revenue. Yeah. They don't want to do that. They do. The customer is the same customer. And how you monetize it, they all know reoccurring revenue. That's how most businesses do. I mean, you can get socks now on subscription.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Everything is subscription now. Yeah. So for people to say, well, the boutique shouldn't do subscription, why not? I mean, they're the most known for it versus some of these other retailers that are coming out now. And it makes it easier for them, right? And then we have the different packages to help them out for that. So,
and are they making, because I see different reports that financially not all of these boutiques are making money, and I don't want you to give away anything sensitive, but are people making good money out of this type of model?
Yeah, so that's the best question, because when we bought CycleBar, we literally had about 70-75% of our studios not making money. That's a lot. And because it goes back to that pay-as-you-go model, it doesn't work. It just doesn't. And conceptually, I think people think it does, but it doesn't. When you have a business, like I'll just give you an example of what we did. So we took over the company. We quickly identified the build-out costs were too much. They were spending about $750,000 to build up a CycleBar. That's insane, right? The footprint was about 3,500 square feet, way too big. Right, because they wanted the space. So we shrunk it down to 2,000 square feet, protected the bikes, so we had the same amount of bikes, but we got rid of things that you didn't need. Like, and plus, if you think you come down 1,500 square feet, you're already saving on your leasehold improvements. You're saving on your HVAC. I mean, there's a lot of other savings go in there. But we kept the premium feel still. We got tile, instead of the tile being, I think it was $23 a square foot, we got tile looks exactly the same for $3. Right, and the other one was from Portugal. This one's here from the U.S. Right, so we found ways to kind of cut that. So we got our build-out cost now to $500. So that was the easy part: is how do we build it for $500K under, and that's including our franchise fees and everything. So that was the first step. The second step was how do we get them to make money? And the old way was you don't do a pre-sale, and a lot of boutiques don't do pre-sales because they didn't come from the industry that we grew up in or I grew up in. So they would literally get a bunch of leads, and the goal is, let's say, 2,000 leads, and they would give 24 days of free rides. And their hope was these people would all eventually buy packages, not from the studio, because the studio would say go online. I mean, we shop studios, and I remember trying to ask for a price, and they ended up telling me to pull up my cell phone so I could see the pricing. Like, I couldn't even buy if I wanted to, right? So, I mean, I could have went online, but they're hoping people would then buy. The problem with that is that then some people would buy, and then so your first month you'd skyrocket, right, in revenue. Next month, nothing. Because everybody bought a package for 2 to 3 months. So now the franchisee's trying to figure out, how am I gonna, pay my bills? So now I have to start planning. So then, now they're on the 3rd month. Well, not everybody used their packages in time. So now they got expenses, right? So what happens is that they then figured out very quickly, if I run a special, right, I can manipulate the market, and then now they'll buy it, right? So then, now you see every 2 or 3 months, they have to run a special. So by doing that, you've now conditioned the consumer for discounts, right? You're ruining your margin. And then now you have this inconsistency of revenue. And in that time, because they thought they were gonna open their studio for $400,000 or $500,000, now they have these high interest loans, right? Build out usually costs more than a lot of people realize, especially you talk to a lot of mom and pops. They think it's going to cost one thing because they're not used to having the support or opening up multiple brands, and they don't realize how quickly that can get away from them. So now they're taking high interest loans, which now they're losing money a lot longer because now their expenses are a lot higher, which happened to CycleBar.
Right.
So then now you're cutting your labor because you got to cut expenses. You cut your marketing. Well, you're in the business of driving revenue, so you can't drive revenue. So then it turns into that downward spiral. And it's not just CycleBar. That's happened, and when you hear those stories of boutique studios not making it, it's not that the need isn't there. It's they don't know how to operate their business.
Right.
So the need is there. And people, like I said earlier, people need to be asked to join. It's just, they're too busy. And even if they love the experience, they're gonna forget about it. They're gonna move on to work and to kids and to school and to all these different things. So having somebody there, and like in CycleBar, there was nobody following up with those missed opportunities. There was no one calling them. There was no lead generation. There was no digital. A lot of mom and pops don't understand digital marketing, right? So at CycleBar, this is a big company, right? We basically had every website was on WordPress, which isn't even a good way to drive lead flow, right? But every location had their own website. So you have this big company, and it's like having 150 mom and pop gyms, because now they're competing against each other when they're trying to do digital. So corporate did no digital, none. It was pushing Facebook ads, and I'm not knocking them. It's just that's all they could do. Facebook posts, Instagram, and local events. And that was their strategy in marketing. So if you think that was a big company, that was how they were telling their franchisees, imagine if you don't have a franchisee helping you out. So you're not doing any of that, right? So then they don't have lead flow coming in. There's no one there to convert it when they are there. And now you're having about 20% of your packages falling off. They're already buying at a discount, you can't lower it anymore. And it kind of got out of control. And so then what happens is you start pressuring your instructors. Because, hey, you got to make your class harder. You got to make your class better. You have to change this, because they're thinking it must be the class, because we were told that if you build it, they'll come. Right. So there must be something around the class. And I have instructors going, I don't have time for this, right? I'm out, right? So that kind of created that opportunity, which is why we bought it. Right. Because we're like, the offering is a home run. Instructors are great. The branding was beautiful. Like I said, we went in, we didn't change it. So it was the operating model. So just like Anthony did at LA Boxing, we said, okay, let's go to reoccurring revenue. Let's hire a general manager who knows how to sell. Let's merchandise it the right way so it has a boutique feel, because a lot of these boutique health clubs or gyms or studios, they don't understand how big retail is as well. So they'll just buy the cheapest shirt they can get, but now they have to buy so many of them that when you walk into their studio, they have 50 red shirts all lined up, right? And they're all promo shirts. You touch it, it doesn't feel like a boutique, retailer. Yeah. So we're really big on having a variety of it, and you touch it, it's higher quality, it's more expensive. You're not gonna sell volume, but the perceived value is there. So when you walk in, you feel like you're in a boutique studio, right? And you're gonna spend money on the membership, and you may buy only one shirt versus 2 or 3, but your margins are there where you're still making your money, right? So all those little things people don't take into consideration, and then we have to redo our website. We had to convert from Mind Body to Club Ready. That way we can actually manage and link locations together. So there's just a lot of the things that we've done in the past that we have that system. So that's, again, the benefit of Expo. But imagine if you're a mom and pop that's never had any of that. You are a Pilates instructor, or you're a yoga instructor, you're a personal trainer, and all your clients say, if you open your own place, I'll follow you. And they do.
Yeah.
And you open up and you're killing it, right? But then one gets relocated for work, the other one has a baby, like all these other things pop off. You don't know how to drive revenue because you took for granted when you worked in your last job, they would give you clients. Now you were good to keep them, but so you look at a lot of these boutiques that aren't under a franchise, or even under a franchise, if they don't understand the systems and how to get revenue into your studios and how to convert it, they are going to struggle. They really are. So when I heard that, it was a concern of mine personally. But when you really dig into it and you see it, there's such low-hanging fruit. So when people tell me that they hear that studios, these boutiques struggle, they do, but it's not the offering.
Right.
Because they went into that business because they're they're a technician.
Yeah.
Right. They're a technician at what they did, and whether it's you're making coffee or baking pies or whatever it is, like you're really good at that. But if you don't know how to get people there, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be successful. So I definitely think the need's there. I think it's the operating.
It's just how people are. Obviously it's new. I guess they're learning how to operate under this new model, and it sounds like you guys have got a good recipe.
Version 2 that are doing it, starting in pre-sale, opening with over 300-400 members in a tent. A pop-up tent. Like it's not even open yet, right? It just tells you that the need is there, but it's how do you get those people there to sign? How do you ask them to sign? How do you keep them engaged while you're going through your pre-sale? And then so now the difference is before when you'd open up the spike and then you'd have this, we're opening up and you continue to go, you continue to raise because you're starting off at your lowest point because now you're going to continue to add members. And then what we do is you pre-sell at a discounted rate, so that way as you grow, your revenue goes up,
right,
and your average dollar goes up per new acquisition. So even the members that you're losing, they're losing at a lower rate. So you still continue to grow with your attrition because the newer ones that you're adding are at a higher price. So you go to a lot of boutique, they don't even price right.
And it goes the opposite direction.
Yeah. So I know it's a long answer to your question.
No, it's a great answer. That alone is worth anybody who's thinking of this business to listen several times because it's a great answer. So final question then, because we've had some fantastic information. You should write a book about this. Final question is: Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you have personally believed is a limit, or other people have said is a limit that you're not able to, I guess, go beyond. What would be an example recently where you've escaped what you've believed has been a personal limit?
I don't think I set goals high enough, but I would say, my limits, especially as of the last, I would say 6 years, I'd say 3 years, but my wife and I really took a chance and, we left security of some of the jobs that we had and said, hey, we're going to consult and we're going to try different things and partner with different groups of people that we've learned a ton from. And then, these opportunities with my prior company and then now Exponential, I think all those different kind of steps, our goals have switched. How do we want to be an entrepreneur? Do we want to just do our own? Do we want to open up 4 or 5 of our own? We're thinking boutique as well. We were actually thinking of doing a yoga and doing a HIIT and doing a boxing, right? So do we just do that? And it's hard because there's no roadmap. But I think that working with Anthony now and just I call it Anthony math. Which is different than anything I've ever learned, and using Anthony math and Anthony logic, it really kind of opens your eyes to really what can be done. And so if you would have asked me, a year ago, if my ambitions would be the same, they wouldn't have been. I think working with him this last year has really changed the way that I see, like even my future, my kids' future. So talking about escaping limits. It's amazing because you said it earlier, you have this goal to get to and you get there and then the goal moves again. But I think that, I don't regret it, but I think I didn't dream big enough. I don't think I've ever set the goals high enough, right? So I think that when you talk about escaping your limits, I think that's a big one for me.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, it was wonderful. It was a great lesson in a lot of things I weren't aware of, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners will be scribbling down some stuff from that. So, final thing is, if people want to find out about from getting a franchise, or where can they go? How do they find out?
They can go to our website at CycleBar.com, or anybody can even reach out to me. I have people reaching out to me all the time on Instagram, or Ryan at CycleBar.com.
Okay, brilliant. Ryan, thank you very much for your time. That's been
thank
wonderful.
You.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.